Good morning, glad you could join us. I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of Israel and about King Solomon. Well, Solomon, we think of him as this really wise king, and he was, but not his whole life. He wrote down a lot of proverbs, and I think you should memorize them. I think you should follow him. The only problem is he didn't, not so much. So he starts off with every advantage, and things are great. Things are just going great. And he starts with like this fledgling nation that becomes a superpower. I mean, it's just amazing. They just had tons and tons of wealth. He builds this big, beautiful temple for God. What could possibly go wrong? The glory of God fills the temple. He prays this incredible prayer, and he has all these people coming to see him, and everybody just thinks he's amazing. He's this romantic. He writes Song of Songs. I mean, he is just got everything going for him. But then he marries all these women. And not only that, but so he's built a temple for God, but he takes this terrible misstep. He introduces idol worship into the holy city of God, into Jerusalem itself. Why? To please his wives and wives and wives. In one generation, they go from being dependent on God to being this self-sufficient political power. Along the way, it's kind of like he lost his way. He lost his vision of God. And they became like what Egypt was. One of the things that God said, don't do this, but they did. They had slave labor. He was literally an arms dealer. He became this superpower. And success just kind of caused him to lose touch with God. So I'm sharing some thoughts that I picked up from Philip Yancey, and he quotes Oscar Wilde, which I think would be, and he agrees, would be just like the perfect epitaph for Solomon. In this world, there are only two tragedies. One is not getting what one wants, and the other is getting it. That's Solomon's story, is in the end, he got everything that he wanted. I mean, Romans chapter 1 talks about that after a while, if we keep doing the things if we keep doing things contrary to God, eventually you're just like, okay, I'll let you have what you want. But it's like a kid who just finally ends up getting sick because he eats all of the cookies. Way too many. Solomon got whatever he wanted. And when it came to symbols of power and status, success, I mean, he was loaded with them. He had the world's largest harem. Yeah, I don't understand that. So he built this big, beautiful temple for God, right? And then he builds a house for himself. Let's make it twice as big. I mean, really? Do you need a house twice as big as the temple? So success might have eliminated kind of like disappointment with God. It might have just made him kind of feel good and all that. But along the way, he stopped desiring God. And I like how Yancey says that the more he enjoyed the world's good gifts, the less he thought about the gift giver. Do you know what strikes me is that in the course of my walking with Jesus these past 45 years, that it's been the struggles, it's been my failures that caused me to seek God more. They just do. The weaknesses in my own life have caused me to seek after God more. As much as sometimes I wish that certain things were different in my life over the course of the last 45 years, I also recognize that some of the things that I thought maybe were the worst are the things that really brought me to my knees and brought me to be dependent upon God. I like how the Apostle Paul puts it, because he was no Solomon. He started out being kind of wealthy and ended up probably being kind of poor. But he says in verse 11, chapter 4, when he writes to the church in Philippi, "Not that I was ever in need, for I've learned how to be content with whatever I have." Well, isn't that a beauty? Being content with whatever you have. He goes on to say, "I know how to live on almost nothing, or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it was with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." Man, those are great verses. I hope that this Christmas season that you can bring your weaknesses to God, that you can bring your whole self to Jesus and just say, "Jesus, help me to seek after you like never before, and help me not to be a Solomon." Many of us are so blessed. Let us not forget God in the blessing. Have a great day.